porn.
Porn?
I've just been, checking out some of that internet porn.
It's a taboo subject to talk about, and an even more taboo subject to try and legislate. But something is happening in Utah that deserves our attention. Hey everybody, I'm Isaac Saul, and welcome to the Tangle YouTube channel. Today, we're going to break down why Pornhub, the most popular porn site in America, just went dark in Utah, and what both sides are saying about it. Then, as always, I'll give you my take. First up, let's start with the basics. In March, Utah Governor Spencer Cox signed the Online Pornography Viewing Age Requirements Bill into law. This forces companies to verify the age of users by using digitized identification cards that are approved by the state, and its aim is to prevent minors from accessing explicit content online. It also holds companies legally liable if they fail to do so. In response, this month, Pornhub began blocking all users from accessing its site in protest of the state's age verification law. Instead, when users go to the website, they'll be met with this message from one of the most popular adult film stars on Pornhub's website.
In order to protect children and user privacy, any legislation must be enforced against all platforms offering adult content. The safety of our users is one of our biggest concerns. However, the best and most effective solution for protecting children and adults alike is to identify users by their device and allow access to age-restricted materials and websites based on that identification. Until a real solution is offered, we've made the difficult decision to completely disable access to our website in your region. Please contact your representatives and demand device-based verification solutions that make the internet safer while also respecting your privacy.
Rather than an ID, Pornhub suggests that the law could use a digital verification method based on devices and urges residents to contact local representatives to fight for a different ID process. A very similar law to the one in Utah has already gone into effect in Louisiana, and Pornhub eventually began complying with the new law, so Utah officials believe it will eventually cave there too. While the Utah and Louisiana laws have clear upsides to keep kids off these websites, opponents have argued that they create different risks. Privacy for adults' information who want to use the website. The nonprofit digital rights group, the Electronic Frontier Foundation, has argued such a law would undermine anonymity online and websites could misuse the data. Now, a trade association in Utah is taking the argument to court. The Free Speech Coalition has filed a complaint, arguing that the law Utah introduced places substantial burdens on website operators, content creators, and that the state has offered a murky definition of what constitutes harmful material for minors. Central to its court case is that the law is unconstitutional on two fronts because it restricts protected speech and is impermissibly vague, which violates the 14th Amendment. Today, we're going to break down some arguments about this law and what happened in Utah with some views from the left and some views from the right, and then, as always, my take. So, first up, let's start with what the left is saying. Many on the left are criticizing Republicans, saying they're once again pretending to protect children while infringing on rights and restricting information about health and gender. In Rolling Stone magazine, Miles Klee argued that it is all part of a broader effort by the Christian right to ban or censor protected speech. Arkansas State Senator Tyler Dees, for instance, said explicitly, "I would love to outlaw it all." This is reflected in their sweeping efforts to prohibit drag shows and purge school libraries. Vehemently anti-porn organizations, including the National Center on Sexual Exploitation, which was founded as a religious group and has a history under its previous name of opposing LGBTQ rights, have been instrumental in pushing for age verification on adult websites. NCOSE even drafted some of the language that eventually found its way into the Utah law. The Free Speech Coalition has made it simple, noting that parents using device filters to limit what their children see on the internet is a far more practical and effective means of protection. They've also argued that Utah does not currently have the ability to verify digital IDs online, which makes compliance basically impossible. Others have questioned how far the government should go to control what your kids see online. In Vox, Sarah Morrison said this isn't just about porn. Bills are being passed and proposed across the country that seriously limit what kids can and can't access online. The Kids Online Safety Act, or KOSA, was introduced in the Senate on a bipartisan basis, and on its face, it seems like a good thing. Free speech advocates, though, worry that the bill's language is too broad and can be used as a backdoor to online censorship. For instance, grooming was once something the bill was designed to limit, even though that term has been adopted on the right for pretty much anything LGBTQ. KOSA's opponents also worry that it gives state attorneys general the power to go after online platforms that host speech about things like transgender rights or abortion care, or mention that gay couples exist. In Utah, the laws requiring social media platforms to verify the ages of their users means people of all ages will likely have to submit some kind of verification to log into their social media accounts. The Utah law on porn site age verification has prompted several sites to just block Utah IP addresses entirely. But any law that covers people, regardless of age, can be privacy violation in and of itself. The threat to kids is real, but so is the possibility that kids' online safety laws can be weaponized to censor content according to subjective and politicized views of what's harmful. Meanwhile, in Tech Dirt, Michael McGrady argued that age verification laws are, quote, terrible. These proposals and laws collectively constitute a textbook case of censorship on the internet. The mandates serve three functions: surveillance, intimidation, and social control. It is point-blank unacceptable to commit people to verifying their age or identities in the name of safeguarding the digital well-being of young people. This is because this would force the web users of all backgrounds and ages to further risk their personal information with sites that have very little business retaining that information for only the simple purposes of complying with local and state laws. The concept of age verification on content that is pornographic is also a trying issue to address. There are mainstream right-wing lawmakers in the United States who go as far as to liken queer young adult literature to hardcore porn for adults. So it's naive to say that age verification mandates aren't tools of censorship. Being that an age verification measure can be structured in a manner that is so punitive and restrictive, providers of non-pornographic sexual wellness and health information could fall victim to private tort action and intervention by the state for disseminating information that includes crucial sexual health and wellness material. All right, so that's it for the left's argument about what's happening in Utah. Let's jump into the right, but before we continue, if you feel like you're getting any value of what we're providing here at the Tangle YouTube channel, we'd really appreciate it if you would hit subscribe, like the video, and turn on notifications. All these things help us with the YouTube algorithm and tells YouTube that there's an audience out there who wants an honest look at views from across the political spectrum. Thank you in advance. All right, let's jump into what the right is saying. So, many on the right believe it is imperative to protect kids from porn and that Pornhub actually relies on targeting minors. In The Federalist, Allison Schuster said Pornhub's willingness to boycott Utah law entirely shows who the target demographic is. It's children. Schuster said the left's crusade to sexualize children starts with exposing them to adult material. Utah is trying to protect children from pornography and its dangerous brain chemistry altering effects. The new law requires age verification, which is a sensible restriction on a website such as Pornhub that provides a platform for products of child sexual abuse, sex trafficking, rape, and other non-consensual behavior. Why would Pornhub risk its whole customer base in Utah if it could maintain an adult audience there? The website could still have continued to rake in profits from the supposed intended audience, Schuster says. Pornography wreaks havoc on a user's body, mind, and soul. Anyone who regularly engages with pornography is at a significantly greater risk of developing perverted tendencies, as well as having altered brain chemistry that thwarts the potential to cultivate healthy relationships. It also drastically increases rates of isolation and depression, and it bolsters sexual dysfunction. Protecting children from this is sensible, Schuster argues, and there's nothing wrong with the Utah law. In National Review, Abigail Anthony said she welcomes Pornhub's decision to block access in Utah, but she's skeptical that restricted access to Pornhub will make a statistically significant reduction of porn consumption in the site. Until 2020, Pornhub allowed users to download content from the site, so it's possible that some Utahns have already saved videos and curated personal electronic libraries of erotic materials, which is not contingent on future website access. Moreover, using a virtual private network or VPN would allow Utahns to easily circumvent the company website's restrictions. And of course, Pornhub is not the only online source for pornography, so Utahns have plenty of other options available, and she imagines many people will quickly discover their new favorite website. Even Twitter allows consensual pornography, albeit such content must be marked as sensitive to warn users. Searching porn on Twitter will yield a long list of accounts dedicated to posting graphic images and videos. Maybe there is cause to celebrate, but only for a moment. Pornhub is one soldier wounded in the war against pornography, and we still face a fierce army, she said. In the Washington Examiner, Tim Carney said Utah benefits as the porn peddlers blocked access. Pornography is a poison that ruins people's minds, souls, and sex lives. For children, it is particularly devastating. America would be better off if every pornographer went out of business and every web hosting service, internet provider, and web browser cut off access to pornography, he wrote. Well, that's never going to happen. Utah scored a victory when MindGeek, the company that owns Pornhub, decided to block access after Utah's age verification law went into effect. The law protects children from porn, and Pornhub's reaction protects Utah's adults from porn. Every governor in America should do whatever it takes to get the same reaction out of Pornhub. This is like a drug cartel threatening to cut off your city because you pass tougher penalties for fentanyl. Next up, congressional Republicans should create a new goal: pass a law that will provoke Pornhub to cut off access to the entire United States. All right, so that is it for the left and the right are saying about this, which brings us to my take. For those of you who are just joining us, my take is where I give you my opinions on all the information we just shared. This is not meant to persuade you in any way. It's just my thoughts and perspective. And the hope is you will all leave your thoughts and your comments down below. We want this channel to be a place for the Tangle community to connect and share. So whether you agree or disagree with me or anyone sharing, just keep it respectful and remember that we are all people looking to just get a little bit closer to the truth. So with that out of the way, here's my thought about this bill. This one is really difficult for me. Sometimes I have strong feelings one way or the other, but I agree almost entirely with the right's position on porn and what it does to minors. I actually think the stuff kids can get access to on websites like Pornhub is addicting, is damaging, and does have the potential to do serious harm, not just to their sex lives, but their love lives, their personal relationships, the people they are attracted to. This isn't some Christian right talking point. There are plenty of studies showing the negative impacts porn has on children, and you only really need common sense. As Judith Sholowitz wrote in a 2016 New York Times column, you can boot up websites like Pornhub and quickly find a moving thumbnail of a topless girl in a diaper or some other fetish you used to have to scour the dark edges of the internet for. She put it like this: "I'm not against the proliferation of internet sexuality," she wrote. "I just don't want my preteens watching actors having sex with corpses, even fake corpses, before they've even begun to date," which to me is a totally sensible position to have. The low-hanging fruit solutions are aplenty. You can put controls on your kids' computers. You can talk to your kids about this content and how it can be harmful, the same way you may talk to them about other vices that proliferate in our society, like drugs or alcohol or gambling. You can monitor your kids' online usage and keep an eye out for how often they might be going to explicit sites. All of these are imperfect but available solutions. The issue is that in today's rapidly changing technological world, kids have the advantage. Most parents today have had to learn the internet. Our kids were born in it. It's native to them. It's easy for them to avoid blocks with VPNs or get around parental controls or undo the controls parents think they had. So I get the appeal of legislation like the bill in Utah. Age verification is like a kind of big blunt hammer to smash a really complex problem. But when you break something like internet access, when you smash that big problem, there's going to be shrapnel. And in this case, I also think the free speech advocates and civil liberties advocates have good measure to be concerned. The obvious point here is that even in a perfect world where the law blocks minors from porn, which again, I think would be a mostly great thing for our teenagers, it would mean adults who have a right to access that content need to hand over identifying material to porn websites. The problem there is obvious. What if a site gets hacked? What if that information gets leaked? What kind of damage could that do to the privacy of a person? And why should we trust any of the companies who are saying they want to hold all this data? The truth is, we can't. So this is one of those weird situations where I think the outcome here, less porn in Utah probably and less access for kids probably, is good. But the tool to get that outcome, which amounts to an invasion of privacy and limits the rights of adults to access speech-protected content, is not good. I wish I could sit here and say I had a great solution, but I don't. I both want this content to be less accessible for minors, and I understand that this is probably not a good or even constitutional way to do it. It doesn't help that the language of the law is broad enough that it could apply to more than just porn sites, but even social media networks and other websites. It's also doubly troubling that it isn't hard to get around the friction. Searches for VPNs apparently have skyrocketed in Utah, which is not surprising given most technologically adept minors and adults know they can pay a few bucks to access content from anywhere in the world. All this is to say, I think the folks behind the new law are well-meaning and justified, but I have plenty of fears that it isn't a good long-term solution and certainly amounts to a government overreach, one that creates all sorts of constitutional and privacy issues for adults. All right, that is it for my take, but I'm curious what you think. How do you think the government can limit children's access to this content, or do you think the government should be limiting this access for children? Let us know in the comments. I'm very curious for some feedback. Speaking of comments, before we get out of here, I wanted to address a comment from a reader from last week's video. They answered our question about where they would cut spending, and they said military and regulatory agencies. Having worked as a contractor in support of Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan, I can say for certainty that there is no incentive at all to reduce military spending. The answer to overly complex processes that failed audits was to introduce even more complexity that would result in continued failures that would result in even bigger budget requests. So I actually love this take. I know that it's controversial to say. I've even written a whole article about how maybe our military spending is a good thing. And in a lot of ways, I do believe that. I mean, one of the best things about living in America is that we are pretty safe from outside attacks. We're pretty safe from other countries. You look around the world, all the things that are happening in the world, and you have to feel a little bit blessed to live here in that regard. That being said, the military money that we spend is so exorbitant. It's so much more than any other country. And I actually don't think that it's necessary to sort of keep that safety supremacy. Honestly, we waste a lot of money in our military. Every audit has basically borne this out, that there's tons of waste in the Pentagon. And so even before budget cuts, I think that's where my mind goes when I want to save money, is let's get rid of waste and fraud. We can see it in programs like the Paycheck Protection Program or all the things that happened after COVID, but the military would certainly be a good place to start. So no argument from me. I think we should definitely have our eyes there. All right, that is it for today's video. Please, as always, before you go, hit subscribe, like the video, and turn on notifications. We're going to be bringing you more content in the future, and clicking that button will keep you posted. And of course, we always want to hear your thoughts. So please leave a comment on today's story, topic, whatever, anything you'd like us to cover, feedback on what we're doing. We'll be back here same time next week. Have a good one. Peace. We got the Tangle Live event. Tangle Live event it's up. And I'm getting an update about how sales are going. It's very hard not to look.